What is up, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, and welcome back to another video at Axe Entertainment. I am your host, Zack Axe, here with another video. Now, you might notice that my background's a little bit different today. I have a couple second-generation wrestlers that I thought I could bring to the forefront, and I thought I had this 3-pack lying around. I thought this was perfect for this video to be sitting here, and that is because I want to talk about second-generation wrestlers. Now, I have 25 lists here of a father and either son or daughter combo that I want to go through and talk about whether the kid has eclipsed the parent or if all these years later the parent's skills still hold true. Now, the criteria for this list pretty much is just I'm going to go through everything that makes you a wrestler, you know, your mic skills, your in-ring. I'm factoring all that in. Now, at the end of the day, this is an opinion. This is my opinion. If you have a different opinion, that's completely fine. Let me know in the comments and tell me how wrong I was. Last thing I want to say is that I am only factoring in pairings here that I am familiar with both the parent and the kid, because you know there's a lot of wrestlers like Alberto Del Rio, for starters, that have famous fathers that I am not particularly acquainted with. I haven't seen them wrestle very often. I haven't seen all of their different stuff, so I didn't think it was fair to put them in here when I'm not necessarily familiar with either the son, daughter, or the father. Getting right into it, I'm going to start with arguably the hardest one on this list, and that is Ric Flair versus Charlotte Flair. Now, overall, Ric Flair is like on the Mount Rushmore of wrestling in a lot of people's books. He is one of the best technicians of all time, and even in his older age was still putting on absolutely banger matches. But then he had a daughter that basically take everything I just said about Ric Flair and put it there, except for the old age and the fact that Charlotte is, of course, in the women's division. Charlotte is one of the best women wrestlers of all time, whether you hate her, love her, want to admit it or not. She is one of the best women's wrestlers of all time, and she will go down in history most likely as the woman with the most championship reigns. Now, at the end of the day, though, I think Ric Flair just easily takes this one, even though Charlotte puts up a great fight, because like I said, Charlotte's one of the best female wrestlers of all time. But Ric Flair was different. Ric Flair, despite having his problems outside the ring, especially recently, and having 1,407 lost matches, I think Ric Flair overall defeats Charlotte in the battle of son versus daughter here. Son versus daughter? In the battle of parent versus daughter here. Next up, we're going to go to Mr. Perfect Curt Hennig and his son Curtis Axel. Now, Curtis Axel, I had a ton of faith in when he first debuted. Well, when he came back as Curtis Axel and stopped being Michael McGillicuddy, which was doomed from the start. And with the whole Nexus thing, it just never really got off the ground for especially Michael McGillicuddy or Curtis Axel. So when they repackaged him and started making him look strong, put him with Paul Heyman, had him pick up wins over, Triple H, and he had like a great system to become a main guy, and he won the Intercontinental Championship pretty early. And I think that he had an absolutely great start to the Curtis Axel character, and then kind of died down the more and more he had to show his true colors, and that at the end of the day he wasn't the best in the ring. Now, I still love Curtis Axel, and I think he was a decent wrestler and a pretty entertaining character to watch. But when your father is Mr. Perfect, you're always going to lose this battle, because Mr. Perfect, may be one of the best wrestlers in the ring, period. His character, too, was pretty good. I think he just had dodgy booking and a lot of injuries throughout his career that kind of derailed him, especially during the end of his career. But Mr. Perfect overall is just one of the best pure grapplers in the books, and Curtis Axel kind of fell off after a bit, and Mr. Perfect never fell off until he retired. So I'd say this is another win for the parents, giving it to Mr. Perfect. Next up, we have the guys in the background right there, and Rocky Johnson versus Dwayne Johnson. And if you want to throw Peter Maivia in here, you can, but at the end of the day, Peter Maivia is not Rocky Johnson's father, so it's not technically right there. I know father-in-law, but not technically his father, so I'm going to exclude Peter Maivia. But when it comes down to The Rock versus Rocky Johnson, now Rocky Johnson absolutely paved the way for African Americans and was one of the first ever African American champions, so he alone is amazing. He's had some great matches. I've gone back and watched a lot of his stuff. He has had great matches. But when your son is literally on the Mount Rushmore of wrestling, period, for his in-ring skills, for his mic skills, for his acting skills, and then he becomes the highest paid actor in Hollywood, which we're not even factoring into this. It's pretty obvious who the better one is, and it's obviously going to be Dwayne Johnson for this one. The Rock is absolutely another breed of talent. Like, he is absolutely like top of the tier when it comes to wrestlers, and I just don't think Rocky Johnson ever really broke out, and he was in a bad part of wrestling where, you know, politicking and Hulk Hoganing was your way to get to the top. But I think even if he had a lot more accolades than he did, he would still be losing to Dwayne Johnson, The Rock. And if you want a little bonus round, throw Ava in here too, and she gets absolutely mollywopped by The Rock. So our next one is a little bit too early to call it, but I have William Regal and Charlie Dempsey next. Now, I say too early to call it because Charlie Dempsey is still very, very young. He's still very new to WWE. He's still very, you know, most main roster watchers don't even know who Charlie Dempsey is. But Charlie Dempsey is making strides to become easily one of the best wrestlers in NXT. And he is just like his father. His style, his skill, his attitude, everything, like down to a T, is pretty much just William Regal Jr. So I think if he continues down this path, maybe 5 years from now, my answer will be different. But William Regal is an amazing grappler. He has some great comedic chops. He had some great serious chops. And he's just overall a great dude, first of all. And he's also a phenomenal wrestler. So, like I said, it's a little bit too early to call it, but maybe 5 years, 10 years from now, we'll flip it and say Charlie Dempsey is probably the better wrestler if he has a little bit more success than William Regal did. But overall, I'm giving it to William Regal easily. Next up is our first triple entry, our only triple entry for a parent, and that is Rikishi. Now, we're going to go ahead and start with Jimmy Uso. Now, these are all pretty hard because Rikishi was a guy that was never really in the main event scene. Even when he was never really a credible threat to the main event scene. But he was a great comedic wrestler when he was in Too Cool, and he was just overall a powerhouse, and he had some actually pretty crazy agility for a man his size. And I don't want to be disrespectful to Rikishi because he's one of the best, you know, one of the legends, but I'd say against Jimmy Uso, definitely I'm giving it to Jimmy Uso. Jimmy Uso just overall, even though his singles push hasn't really gotten going very much, I'd still say that Jimmy Uso's tag team success alone puts him higher than his father. And then if you want to just go right to Jey Uso after that, Jey Uso, take everything I said about Jimmy Uso and just add a Royal Rumble win, add a World Heavyweight Championship win, add an Intercontinental Championship win. I think Jey Uso clears Rikishi easily. And now the hardest one, though, is the third son, which is Solo Sikoa. Now, Solo Sikoa and Rikishi, I'd say, are kind of alike in the sense that neither of them have really found main event success, even though they've been flirting with it. They were flirting or have been flirting with the main event scene. And I think as of right now, making of this video, I think that I'm giving Rikishi the win over Solo Sikoa, just because Solo Sikoa has yet to, even though he is like in the main event scene, he's yet to win a big title. He's yet to win a singles title besides the NXT North American Championship. And I don't want to say he hasn't found his feet yet, but it kind of feels like he hasn't found his feet yet, even though, like I said, he's been in the main event scene. He's had 3 different groups that he's been a part of, but he always feels like he needs a group, and if he didn't have that group, it wouldn't really be as entertaining for Solo Sikoa, even though I think right now he's definitely growing on me. His comedic timing is getting better, his in-ring is getting better, and I think Solo Sikoa a couple years from now could definitely beat out Rikishi, but I'm going to give the Usos over Rikishi, but I'm going to give Rikishi over Solo. Though they might not technically be father and son, they are adopted father and son. So I am going to put Haku up next against his 2 sons. Now, if we put Haku against Tonga Loa, it is so easy that Haku is so much better. Haku is one of the realest, baddest dudes on the planet, not even just wrestlers, on the planet. I mean, dude bit somebody's nose off. Dude is crazy, and in the ring, even though I think Haku never reached the levels that he should have because he was absolutely amazing in the ring, he was so smooth in the ring, I think that overall he was just a way better wrestler. And Tonga Loa, we know, is a meme at this point. I was thinking about saying Tonga Loa just as a joke before I changed it, but I'm not even going to say that. Haku is just way better than Tonga Loa. Now, if we go to his other son, Tama Tonga, that one's a little bit harder, and that is because Tama Tonga is a way better wrestler than Tonga Loa. And if we go to New Japan or anywhere else that Tama Tonga was at, then Tama Tonga, he had a way better career everywhere else. So far, of course, a slow start to his WWE career. And I'd say even if we're factoring in everywhere that both men have been, Haku still takes the win over Tama Tonga, even though Tama Tonga is way closer to his father than Tonga Loa is. A little shout out to Hikuleo too. I haven't seen much of Hikuleo, so I didn't include him on this list. Maybe after he debuts and I see some more of him, then we can put him and decide if he's better or not than Haku. Sticking with the Samoans, next up we have Sam Fatu, the Tonga Kid, and Jacob Fatu. Now, I know I said I'm only featuring people that I am very familiar with. I'd say Tonga Kid is the one that I'm out on this whole list that I am least familiar with, but I have gone back and watched some of his stuff, and overall he was a pretty good wrestler, but he's not a name like Rikishi or Umaga or all these names that we see inside of, the Samoan dynasty. So I think putting him up against Jacob Fatu, a guy that right now is United States champion, he's looking past the US championship, and it looks like he's going to be a WrestleMania main eventer as soon as like the next 2 years. And he's genuinely one of the best wrestlers in the ring nowadays. I'm taking Jacob Fatu. Next up, we have Bob Orton and his son Randy Orton. Now, this one is honestly not that close either. Bob Orton is a legend. He's a household name, and he had some very cool moves for his era and his time. But just like I said about The Rock, you're facing somebody that is on the Mount Rushmore potentially, and Randy Orton, one of the best of all time. Even though Randy's moveset, was never the craziest, Randy Orton's gimmicks and his characters and everything that Randy Orton just puts together and basically creates the perfect wrestler and a perfect image and the catchy theme song and everything that you want out of a wrestler, Randy Orton has, and I don't think Bob Orton really did. I know their gimmicks were very different, but I don't think anyone's going to argue with me that Randy Orton is better than Bob Orton. This one might be a hot topic, even though I don't think it's even close, and that is Rey Mysterio and Dominic Mysterio. And why do I say it's not close? It's because Rey Mysterio, another one of those guys that's on the pretty close to the face of Mount Rushmore. I know at this point Mount Rushmore has 18 faces, but Rey Mysterio is one of the guys that you have to mention. When you say greatest mask of all time, it's Rey Mysterio. When you say greatest cruiserweight of all time, it's arguably Mysterio. And he is just, one of the best pure wrestlers of all time. So Dominic Mysterio is so new and so fresh that he is not even close to Rey Mysterio right now. I know a lot of people are going to glaze Dom, and maybe people are going to disagree with me and say Dominic is better than Rey. But even though he's more entertaining on TV to watch right now than Rey, overall Rey Mysterio easily beats Dominic, even though I think, and just like I said about, Charlie Dempsey, maybe 10 years from now my attitude changes. Maybe 10 years from now Dominic Mysterio is one of the best of all time and he beats out his dad, but I think it's not even close right now. It's Rey Mysterio. We have another twofer right now with Dusty Rhodes, and I think this one's going to be very difficult for me because Dusty Rhodes was not a phenomenal wrestler. He was not putting on 5-star classics, but his charisma and his just raw charisma just always drew you into Dusty Rhodes. So even if he wasn't having the best matches, his matches made you feel something, which is something that not a lot of matches can do. A lot of 5-star classics, in the ring don't necessarily make you feel something, but all of Dusty's matches made you feel something. And putting him up against Goldust, first of all, this one is the harder one of the two because Dusty Rhodes, in WWE he got made a fool out of, but in WCW Dusty Rhodes is one of their top stars. And then Goldust was never, I don't think Goldust even ever flirted with the main event scene. Goldust was always a side act. He was always a comedic character. And I think with his time in AEW as Dustin Rhodes, and he's been able to put on, actual storytelling matches instead of constantly having to be Goldust, I think he's getting a little bit better with age. But I think just because he got stuck in that gimmick for so long, I think Dustin overall is the better wrestler in ring. But at the end of the day, I think Dusty takes the cake for overall when it comes to wrestlers. Then we go to his brother Cody, which I think this one is not even close. I think Cody Rhodes is a guy that has stamped his name on WWE ever since returning. If you had asked me this question when Cody went to AEW, when he was first in AEW and hadn't done much in WWE except for Stardust and the dashing and everything, it would have been probably Dusty Rhodes. But since he became the American Nightmare in AEW and brought it over to WWE, he has been absolutely insane. He's been the guy that's carrying the company on his back. He's a WWE champion. He's a 2-time back-to-back Royal Rumble winner. He has a ton of different accolades that Dusty doesn't. And in the ring, of course, Cody is the better wrestler. So I'm going to give Cody the win over Dusty here. Next up, we kind of have another William Regal, Charlie Dempsey situation in Brian Pillman and Brian Pillman Jr. or Lexis King. And I think this one, just like I said about Charlie Dempsey and William Regal, is too soon to call it. But as of right now, I'm just going to tell you right now, Brian Pillman is winning this one. Brian Pillman just had a great character. He was a great in-ring wrestler when he was with the Hollywood Blondes or when he broke off and became Psycho. He was always putting on compelling TV. And I can't say the same thing right now about Lexis King, because when he was in AEW, Lexis King wasn't doing anything. And then when he came over to NXT, now he's a Heritage Cup winner and he's had some pretty good matches, but he's still only in NXT. He's still very young. So just like I said about Charlie Dempsey, maybe 10 years from now my attitude changes and I'm saying Lexis King, but as of right now it's Brian Pillman. We interrupt this program of Axe Entertainment to bring you a speed round, because while I was editing this video just a day later, I realized that there was a lot of names that I wanted to mention. So very quickly, I'm going to give British Bulldog over Davey Boy Smith Jr. We're going to give Shane McMahon as a way better wrestler than Vince McMahon. We're going to give Kurt Angle over Jason Jordan. Santina Marella beating Ariana Grace right now because it still is very early. Jerry Lawler over Grandmaster Sexay. And Christian Cage over pretty much everybody. We have a pretty easy one here. Personally, between Jimmy Snuka and Tamina. Now, I'm pretty sure Tamina is still under contract. If I'm not mistaken, she still somehow got a contract. Maybe she has a Legends deal. I don't know. But Jimmy Snuka versus Tamina Snuka. Now, if we're separating the real-life human from the wrestler, Jimmy Snuka was way before his time. He had absolutely amazing offense for, the era that he was in. He was like the guy that was inventing new moves in an era where we had 7 moves. So to put him up against Tamina, who was never the best women's wrestler, she never got any real accolades in WWE, and for the most part, she was just kind of there as a side character, whether it was to Naomi or Sasha Banks or Nia Jax or the Usos, whoever it was. She was always a side character. She never felt like the main character, and at one point Jimmy Snuka was a main character, so I'm giving it to Jimmy Snuka. Now this is another hard one. We have Rick Steiner versus Braun Breaker. Now, I know I've been going, Lexis and Charlie, I said they still have plenty of room to go and grow. And so does Braun Breaker. Braun Breaker has a ton of room to grow. But even with that room to grow, he is still absolutely insane. He is one of the brightest, if not the brightest prospect in all of WWE right now. He is absolutely insane in the ring. His agility mixed with his athleticism, mixed with his raw power, it just makes for great TV. And now that he actually has a character behind him in Seth Rollins, and he has accolades in the Seth Rollins group, and he has accolades like the Intercontinental Championship to back him up, I think putting him up against Rick Steiner now is fair already. And Rick Steiner, for the most part, was always a tag team guy with Scott Steiner. And then when they broke apart, Rick kind of, just wasn't there, while Scott Steiner went off on his own to become, Big Papa Pump. And the Dog-Faced Gremlin kind of didn't do much. So I think overall, I love the Steiner brothers as a tag team. I think they were way before their time. I still, even though he doesn't have the accolades right now, as that much accolades, I'm still going to give it to Braun Breaker, because Braun Breaker even without factoring in the fact that he has 20, 30 more years in him of absolutely amazing TV. Right now, he's still one of the top stars in the company, and even before he wins a world title or before he gets a Rumble win or a big, big win like that, I think he's still beating out his dad. We have another twofer here. We have IRS. Now, IRS has 2 kids. We're going to start with Taylor, which is Bo Dallas or Uncle Howdy. And this one is kind of poetic because they kind of were the same thing. IRS was always just a character and then a jobber. Like, that was kind of his whole thing, was he was just a jobber for the most part. And Bo Dallas, just like his father for a while, was a jobber. He had that undefeated streak when he first came up from NXT after he was an NXT champion, and then he went and became a jobber after that. So even though he has a kind of bright future right now with the Wyatt Six, and he's looking good as Uncle Howdy, this one's a little bit hard because IRS, like I said, they're both kind of on the same level, and I don't want to cheat you guys out and say equals to, but I think overall I'm gonna give it to Bo Dallas just because he has a more compelling character right now. Even though IRS's character was great for his time, I think he has a way more compelling character right now. And if you want to go to the other one in Bray Wyatt, that one is very, very easy. Bray Wyatt, WWE champion, multiple time Universal champion, has one of the best gimmicks of all time in The Fiend. And just, I don't have to tell you how good Bray Wyatt is. Bray Wyatt eclipses his dad by a long shot. Now, next up is actually one that I just found out. I don't know how I didn't know this until now, but Brooks Jensen on NXT is the son of Bull Buchanan. Now, I did not know that until, like I said, I was doing research for this video. And this one's going to be very simple, very fast, kind of just like everybody else I've said this about. Brooks Jensen still has a long way to go. He just got kicked out of the culling, so right now he's kind of motionless. He has nowhere to go right now at all, and he has still a lot of time to go. Now, his father isn't as iconic as the other guys I was mentioning in Bull Buchanan, but Bull Buchanan actually had a character. He wasn't, he's a name that isn't householdly known, I guess, in regular wrestling. A lot of people know the name Bull Buchanan. He was in Right to Censor, and I think overall, like I said, maybe 5 years from now, I'd say even a couple good years of wrestling for Brooks Jensen, and he's probably gonna eclipse his dad, but right now I'm giving Bull to win. Next up, we have another one that's kind of hard for me, and that is Jim the Anvil Neidhart and his daughter Natalia. Now, this one is very, very hard because Jim the Anvil Neidhart was never the best wrestler, but he was a part of one of the best tag teams of all time because he was with one of the best of all time in Bret Hart. And Bret Hart always made him look good, and he always, he knew when to hit his spots, and that's all you needed to do when you're next to Bret Hart. And I think Jim the Anvil Neidhart kind of got exposed a little bit for not being the best wrestler when he went to WCW and started wrestling by himself, and then we had a bunch of contract issues with him. And Natalia, on the other hand, has carved out a great career. She's a multiple-time women's champion, a Divas champion, a tag team champion. She's won pretty much, besides the mid-cards that just got introduced not too long ago. She's done everything there really is to do in women's wrestling. And I think overall, Natalia is just a better wrestler in the ring. And I think Jim the Anvil Neidhart was still great, and I still love going back and watching the Hart Foundation's matches, but I think Natalia is the better overall here. Next up, we have a non-WWE one because we have Taz and his son Hook, who is currently in AEW. Now, Hook absolutely is amazing. Hook has pretty much everything that Taz has. He's just a little bit smaller, so a lot of less force than Taz was delivering the moves with, but he pretty much does all the same moves as Taz, just sprinkle in a little bit of Hook here and there. And I think Hook, since he got into AEW, has kind of struggled to get out of his father's shadow, which is a problem that sometimes, like Curtis Axel and a lot of other guys have had, where when your father is who your father is, it's kind of hard to get out of that shadow. And I think Hook has kind of struggled with that for a little bit, but definitely he is making strides. He is easily going to be one of the cornerstones of AEW in the future. He's still very, very young. He still has a bright future ahead of him, whether he stays in AEW or moves to TNA, WWE, whatever. He is absolutely great. But his dad is Taz. And Taz, if you never watched a Taz match, go watch his match against Kurt Angle right now. Now Taz was, I guess, amazing in the ring. He is like very short and stumpy, so his athleticism was absolutely crazy for his stature. And overall, Taz was just a suplex machine. He had great moves, great timing. His ECW run was amazing. And I think 5 years from now, 10 years from now, we might switch it up. But right now, it's Taz. Another AEW one, and a very quick one, honestly. We have Billy Gunn and then his sons, Austin and Colton Gunn. Now, Austin and Colton Gunn have really done nothing for me since they joined AEW. I haven't seen anything from them that makes me want to, say that they're going to eclipse their father. So maybe 5 years from now, 10 years from now, I still think I was probably end up picking Billy Gunn, because these two look like they're kind of stuck in the tag division permanently because of their characters. And I don't see these two ever really breaking out of the shadow of Billy Gunn, especially when their first big feud was with the Acclaimed and Billy Gunn. So Billy Gunn overall was just a great wrestler, a great tag team wrestler. When he was by himself winning King of the Ring, he was still having great matches, good matches. And I think Billy Gunn takes the win here easily. Next up, we had one that seemed promising, and it seemed like it was going to be tougher at first, and that is the $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase and Ted DiBiase Jr. Now, Ted DiBiase Jr., when he first debuted and he got put into Legacy, it looked like he was going to get a rocket strapped to him. It looked like he was going to be the next star. He had the catchy theme song. He was put into a group with Randy Orton, which boosted his stocks off the riff. And he was actually having pretty good matches with Cody Rhodes. And even when he broke away and became kind of, was a $1 Million champion for a little bit there, he seemed promising. And he never worked out. I thought he was pretty entertaining sometimes, but he definitely did not live up to the name of the $1 Million Man. Ted DiBiase is just one of the best characters, period, in wrestling history. And on top of that, he also was just a great technician in the ring. And even though they were on whole different eras, I think Ted DiBiase still Senior takes this win, because like I said, Ted DiBiase Jr. had the spotlight and kind of flopped in it, while Ted DiBiase Sr. had the spotlight and actually absolutely flourished in it. So this one's pretty easy. It's the $1 Million Man. And we're down to our last two, but it's the same dad. So we have Sika. Now I'm going to start with putting Rosie here against Sika. Now if you don't know who Rosie is, Rosie was a member of 3 Minute Warning. He became a superhero along with Hurricane and Stacy Keibler back in the day. And Rosie was actually very, very good in the ring. And I think that Rosie and Sika are kind of on the same wavelength for me, because Sika was always stuck in a tag team with Alpha, obviously. So he's like always going to be looked at as a tag team wrestler, and I think Rosie kind of got the same thing, because he ended up in, like I said, 3 Minute Warning with Umaga or Jamal, and then he ended up afterwards with Hurricane, so he was kind of always stuck in the tag division. But Rosie definitely did not see the success that his father did. His father had multiple tag team championships under his belt, and he's a part of one of the most iconic tag teams of all time. So I'm definitely giving Sika the win over Rosie, even though I think Rosie was very promising. And then we go to his other son, and it's not even close, because his other son is, of course, Roman Reigns. And Roman Reigns, another guy that is potentially on the Mount Rushmore of wrestling, has one of the longest reigning WWE Championship runs of all time. He's just perennially a main eventer. Everything he does feels important, whether he's a good guy or a bad guy. Whatever, no matter what he does, he just always feels important. He's, like I said, one of the biggest wrestlers of all time. And it's not even really close to compare a guy that was always in the tag division versus a guy that was every division that he wanted to be. Roman Reigns is just one of the best of all time. So, of course, Roman Reigns wins this one. Alright, well, that's all I got for you. That's all the pairings that I have. If there's any pairings that I missed that you guys are like, that was an easy one, where'd you miss that? Then let me know in the comments. I think I got all the ones that I really know both sets of. And if there's any guys you didn't agree with, just go ahead and let me know in the comments. So I actually realized that I had more than 25 because I had some of them lumped together. But at the end of the day, the parents did win 15 to 12. So I guess the parents at the end of the day are better than their kids. But if you did enjoy this video and you want to see more videos like this, let me know in the comments. Let me know any video ideas that you have for me. Please, I am running out of video ideas and I don't want to just do weekly awards. I want to add other videos like this, so please let me know in the comments. Anyways, if you did enjoy, leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe for me, ring the bell if you want to be notified, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.
This happened if I had real tough love, I'm bad at this, and I'm bad for this.
Narcissistic tendencies, I don't care about no one else. Narcissistic tendencies, I'm low, so set me on the shelf. Few people ever have my back, yeah, there ain't no doubt about that.
Big quiche. I feel bad for they're probably getting crushed. I need to stop hitting my freaking microphone. That's probably why it keeps disconnecting.